What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Will and Rock MMA podcast.
What's going on, everybody? We have a stacked card to talk about UFC 229. We're also going to talk about some UFC news.
We have a lot to talk about,
There is so much out there in the MMA world. It's been very busy as of late. Let's start off with the first things first. Dustin Poirier is officially out of the MSG 230 card that was going to happen November 3rd. Versus Nate Diaz. One thing that has been confirmed is that they've completely eliminated Nate out of the card as well. They couldn't find him a last-minute opponent.
It's too close. It's November 3rd. We're talking about a 3-week turnaround time. It's not enough time to get somebody prepared to fight a guy like Nate Diaz. The only one that would make a little bit sense is if you put Khabib in there, but I don't think Khabib wants that fight. And the reason why I say Khabib, he obviously wins this last card that just happened, and he didn't take much damage, so he would have made more sense.
So my theory behind that is the reason why the UFC decided to do that. It's not because they couldn't throw Khabib in there. Khabib is coming off, and some things that we're going to talk about later on in the podcast is it's coming off some craziness that happened. So in order to make that fight and make it bubble up, hopefully they'll give Nate that fight, or who knows if McGregor's going to take that fight again. But anyways, so that's that. Next thing we have in store for you guys, we have Derek Lewis versus Daniel Cormier.
Right, that's right.
Headlining. They're going to be the main fight at UFC 230.
I'm excited about
November 3rd as well.
I'm excited about this one. The only disappointment that I have in this with that fight being announced is that they completely dismissed Stipe Miocic. He's been sitting, waiting for the belt. He deserves it. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy broke the record of holding the belt for the longest consecutive in the UFC heavyweight division. Why not give him the opportunity to step in after the loss that he took against Daniel Cormier? I would like to think, obviously, it has to do with publicity. It has to do with like what is going to bring in more money. So, of course, bring in Derek Lewis after coming off of a knockout of this next card that we're going to talk about, so it kind of made sense for him to do it. Not the best performance by Lewis, but with all that being said, it was a knockout. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. So what you said, I think Daniel Cormier is really being selective of who he's going to step into the octagon with him. He knows that no matter how you see it, and I know it's a little bit disrespectful for Derek Lewis, but he knows that's going to be, I won't call it the easier fight, but it's going to be more a less of a challenge for Daniel Cormier than Stipe would. So in this case, I see why the UFC decided to throw a bone at him. I would like to think for this MSG card, I do believe Stipe deserved the rematch. I mean, for somebody like you mentioned, you break history, you lose. If you're not McGregor, you're not getting a rematch. There is just favoritism that really doesn't serve well, not just for the UFC, but for just the MMA community as a whole. Especially for a weight class like the heavyweight weight class that you always trying to find the next superstar. You had it.
Yeah.
You had Stipe there, you know? Anyways, kudos to fucking Derek Lewis, and hopefully he makes us fucking laugh on that fight as well.
Yeah.
Next fight, we got Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega at UFC 231 December 8th.
Now, this is a fight that we were looking forward to watching a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, Max Holloway was having problems with some sort of concussion that he had. They attribute that to the fact that he wasn't able to lose weight properly. So because of that, it had something mental, and he decided, you know what, I'm not going to fight for that card, which I 100% agree that he should have stepped out, especially when you're having brain problems in a sport where you get hit in the fucking head all the time. So with that being said, they postponed the fight. It couldn't come at a better time. We're talking about fourth quarter, December, big name, big fight, and it's one of the most intriguing fights in the lightweight division. You got a guy like Brian Ortega who walks around like in 175 or 180, almost
crazy.
200. Same thing goes for Max Holloway. Big guys that come down to 155. And we're going to see the best version of both fighters. I cannot wait for this fight. I don't know who the hell might win this fight, to be honest. This is a really tough fight to call. We'll do that obviously when the time comes.
Yeah, I think stylistically this fight makes so much sense. We've seen Max Holloway have great takedown defense, and we also have. He's also amazing with his hands. His accuracy is by far one of the best at light heavyweight. Light heavyweight at lightweight. And as far as Brian Ortega goes, there's somebody who has proven they could beat you on their feet now. After he knocked out Frankie Edgar, someone like Frankie Edgar, and somebody who works phenomenal from his back, or he works phenomenal as just in jiu-jitsu game as a whole. This is one of those fights that stylistically makes so much sense for the UFC, and you're putting the right people to fight in this card. So hands down with that.
Easy promotable fighters as well, which I think it's great for the sport.
Great for the sport, fucking great for the UFC, right? Next we got Kevin Lee versus Alaquinta 2, and that's gonna headline UFC on Fox on December 15th. I'll get this one.
Yeah, go for it.
This fight makes a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. We got Kevin Lee, who's literally just skyrocketing to the top, who is I would like to think one big knockout away from getting a title shot. And you got someone like Alaquinta, who last minute in the Brooklyn card literally saved it by fighting Tony Ferguson. No, he didn't fight Tony Ferguson, dude. He ended up fighting Jesus fucking Christ, Khabib. He ended up taking the fight with Khabib in Brooklyn last minute, and Khabib beat him down, but he stood his ground and he won by decision. So kudos to Alaquinta for taking this fight.
He fought Tony Ferguson. Chris, do me the favor. Can you take a look at that?
He saved. Don't look for nothing.
Wait.
Don't look for nothing.
He was talking about Kevin Lee.
No, we're talking about Alaquinta saved the card in Brooklyn.
Right. I apologize. Yeah,
it's okay. With that being said, this is part 2 of their series going on right now, and it makes so much sense for both fighters. And kudos to freaking the UFC for giving Alaquinta such a name like this, because I think he deserves that. He proved it when he fought versus Khabib.
That's definitely a great point that you put out there. The fact that they're giving him the spotlight that he deserves after taking a car with Khabib, put up the best fight that Khabib has seen in the UFC so far, and we're talking about a guy that just fought McGregor, who they thought it was the best fighter in that weight class. Keeping in mind it was a last-minute fight for both fighters, so we saw some holes in Khabib's game, but he wasn't expecting to fight a fighter like Iaquinta. With that being said, Iaquinta got only a 10-day notice, so tremendous performance by Iaquinta. I'm very intrigued with this fight because we're talking about two of the most underrated fighters in that weight class. I'm looking forward to see what Iaquinta could do in standing up, and I'm intrigued to see how Kevin Lee works off his back. If he goes underground,
I don't think this fight's gonna go to the ground.
I think Kevin Lee's gonna try to take him down one way or another. But long story short, one of the best fights in that weight class as well, man.
Hands down, guys.
And that could be for #1 contender.
But that's the thing. I think if Alaquinta pulls the victory off, I still don't think that he's going to be that #1 contender. I think depending on how Kevin Lee finishes this fight, he will get that #1 contender ranking. I believe that Alaquinta still needs one more fight after Kevin Lee to take that belt. That's just my personal opinion.
But just to add one little thing, again, this is the reason why I was a little confused with what you were saying right now, was because I remember when Kevin Lee went in to fight Tony Ferguson, he had the staph infection with that big ass, I think it was mark in his chest or something. And for some reason, that's what bumped me to think that, mind you, Kevin Lee, kudos to that guy for going into the ring with staph infection, didn't fight his best performance. You know, you have to be on a whole bunch of medication and didn't perform well, but tremendous fighter. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Couldn't agree with you. Last but not least on our UFC news is Jones versus Gustafsson 2. That's also going to headline UFC 232 December 29th. There's so much happening in these next 2 months, man. So much happening in these next 2 months.
Let's talk a little bit about that whole John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson. We're talking about Alexander Gustafsson, the only guy that gave John Jones competition the first time they fought. One of the only guys, because OSP also gave him a little bit of competition. You could have easily given the fight to Alexander Gustafsson the first time they fought. With that being said,
OSP?
No, sorry. John Jones went into that match, and this is when he got hit with that whole cocaine allegation. barely used to party it up all the time during that time, barely got to train, and still won, although I don't think he won, that fight. This is the baddest man in the planet stepping into the octagon. I don't care what anybody else says. With steroids or without, I think Jon Jones is the best fighter, but it's intriguing to see what Jon Jones is going to come into the octagon, and I think it's not a better place for Gustafsson to take that fight as than it is right now. So I could see this going really close, very similar to the last fight. It could be really close to decision, or maybe a stoppage from Jon Jones could happen. But anyways, we'll get to that when the time is right.
I'm not even going to elaborate that much more than what you just said, because I do believe, what if Jon Jones does what he needs to do, and that is stay away from steroids and stay away from the partying and everything? What kind of animal would he be? And
could it be the same animal that knocked out Cormier the last time they fought?
And he got caught with steroids for that fight. Yeah. So what is a clean fighter? Somebody who is non-partying, who's dedicated the whole time. He ends up beating Daniel Cormier just on cleaning himself, his act right, and just fighting. This might be the scariest Jon Jones we've ever seen.
Or the complete opposite, because he's not doing any steroids that will allow him mentally to get into the octagon thinking that he's going to win, because he has that one thing over the fighter that he's fighting.
Absolutely. But it's an intriguing fight. Gustafsson is one of those rough ass who takes a ton of beatings and still finds a way to win fights. So this fight is going to be one of those fights that's going to go down in history, right? Yeah. All right, guys, done with UFC news.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Let's go to UFC 229.
Right.
Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. First fight of that card, main card, I should say. Michelle Waterson versus Felice Herring. Okay, I know you were in Ecuador. I'm not sure if you caught this fight.
This is one of the fights that I didn't catch. I was trying to look it up to see if I could fight. I know who won, but since I didn't see it.
Okay, I'll be more than glad to talk about this fight. So, to start off the fight, I must say, Felice did a phenomenal job at trying to keep it a close pace with Michelle Waterson. Michelle Waterson's right leg is fucking Speedy Gonzalez, man. Yeah. And does such a great job to keep the distance away from Felice. This is hands down, guys, the best fight, my personal opinion, that Michelle Waterson's ever fought. She is fucking dominant. Mm. I remember her being really well. This is hands down the best performance in her career.
This fight was all stand-up?
It was all stand-up. She was able to keep her distance so she wouldn't be taken down. Her endurance, she won by decision. She did such a phenomenal job. She just looks like a scary fighter going into this. And talk about somebody they could promote. Talk about somebody who they can totally do so much with. Michelle did a phenomenal job. Granted, not to give not enough credit to Felice, but at the end of the day, Felice did not fight her fight. And it wasn't because Felice wasn't ready for the fight. It's just Michelle brought a different type of animal into the octagon. So fucking kudos to Michelle. She should totally start talking about big names after this fight, because she did a phenomenal job. Really impressed.
The reason why I was asking you, did she take anybody down or any of that? She's in the Greg Jackson camp. The Greg Jackson camp, as we all know, have a fighter like Holly Holm, who loves to stand up, who loves to kick. And when you have an opponent that is at that caliber, you're constantly training with a person like that, with that caliber, your game is just gonna expand. It's gonna, and you start to see the development of these fighters. Michelle Waterson is a perfect example of that. Of training with a female fighter like Holly Holm is. I'm more intrigued now to see who they're going to put up against her next and what type of performance she's going to put in. And I have to give a lot of credit to Holly Holm. I really do. I think she's the reason why her game has developed the way it has.
That's a great point, dude. That's an absolutely great point. Michelle Waterson, whatever the hell you did in that last fight, anybody with a smaller or weaker chin would have gotten knocked out. She fought a phenomenal fight, man. I just watching the fight, I was so impressed and so happy to see somebody who we've seen struggled here and there, always a question mark, but just completely dominated the fight.
Let's go to the
Next fight. By the way, this card was stacked. We got Derek Lewis versus Derek Lewis.
Wait, wasn't it OSP who fought next? Or was it Derek Lewis first?
Let's talk about the OSP fight. I think it was a Derek Lewis fight.
Okay.
But let's talk about the Dominic Reyes versus OSP fight that happened as well. Did you catch that fight?
I caught small glimpse of it.
That's a good point because you did catch towards the
Right,
ending, but you might be right.
So
our orders might be wrong.
The OSP fight, I caught small glimpse of it. Let me just throw my little
little insights.
I don't know whether or not OSP didn't perform the way he normally performs, or is Reyes that damn good? Because it seemed like it was a dominant fight by Dominic Reyes. But that's what I could see from far. I couldn't really. I was in a really crowded place. I was trying to keep an eye on it, but it was too hard. But
no, I'll give you.
Please break it down a little more.
I don't want to stay all day in this card because this card is almost like a Michelle Waterson type of situation where it was just dominance from the first round. OSP looked very lost. I said the reason why I feel like OSP might have won this fight is because he's so unorthodox. He brings just the wild style and he finds a way to submit you. He submitted people in the most craziest way, and he knocks people out because he has the power as well. And that comes from him being a football player and an athlete. He did not show up for that fight. And we've seen this before. We've seen this happen to OSP. OSP goes and wins 2 big fights on 2 big names, and then looks like he had no business being in the octagon. OSP has a tendency of not performing, almost like Jiraiya Faber. Not being consistent. Almost like Jiraiya. Always goes to dominates the smaller guys, fights at somebody with a bigger name, and then ends up dropping back. OSP needs to go back to that drawing board and figure out his game plan for his next fight. But I must say, kudos to freaking Reyes. Reyes' dominance, his distance that he keeps from the octagon, the comfort level that he has, and his right and left hands are serious.
Yeah, the kid looks amazing. His movements, his feet movement was amazing. Wasn't he going in and out? That's the little bit that I got to see.
His boxing is up to par, man. It's up to, and for somebody who just walked into the UFC, great job, phenomenal job. All right, next fight: Derek Lewis versus Alexander Volkov.
Yeah.
Alexander Volkov. Man, what can we say about this fight that makes it almost bothered me? Granted, it was a phenomenal fight. Granted, Derek Lewis did what he had to do, which we expected him to do. It is sad to see. I don't know if this is bad training. I don't know if this is Alexander's hard-headed option going into the fight after he's winning complete dominance.
Dominance in the fight.
First, second round. You know how to beat Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is very beatable. You take him down, you grind him down, and he does not have the tank to do anything else. Why give him the option to stand and bang?
But because he did that first and second round, that's the reason why you want to keep it on your feet. You're winning the fight. The question is being smart in your attack, or just don't fucking attack. Stand back. You get knocked out in 10 seconds on the third round. Why the hell are you still pushing forward?
Yeah.
You have 10 seconds. Listen, I'm a huge fan of seeing people going crazy in the last 10 seconds of a fight. Only if the fight is really close.
Yeah.
Why give your best at the 10-second mark when you're winning the whole fight, man?
It's not your best. It's your dumbest move.
Yeah, you're completely right about that, because a low leg kick in a position like that, why would you do a left low kick when he's a right-handed puncher? It just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh, it was so quick. It was just like, oh shit, he got knocked out. And then I see the replay and I'm thinking, wait, there was 10 seconds left? Wait, did he just throw a low kick and put his left hand down? It's just everything about that 10 second didn't make any sense for him to do. Kudos to Derek Lewis for taking the opportunity. I mean, seeing the opening and taking the chance that he had no choice but to.
You know, we look at these fighters who are one punch away from winning every single fight. Like Mark Hunt always rings a bell every time I think about fighters like this. You know how to beat these fighters. This fight with Cormier versus Derek Lewis. Cormier knows what he needs to do to win this fight. It's not rocket science to beat Derek Lewis, and it's easier said than done. Granted, I'm not a fighter to be talking like that either, but The blueprint's out there, man. The blueprint's out there. You take him down and you grind him out and you get him tired because he gets really tired. Yep. I tell you what's the best thing about Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis's heart is bigger than anybody in that octagon. That's why the fuck he won, because he was winded. He was completely winded. He was hurt. His face looked worse than I've ever seen his face look. He still managed to throw that right hand with that amount of power in the last 10 seconds of the third round. So it shows you heart. It shows you, people are like, oh, he doesn't deserve the belt. Well, granted, let me tell you something. He does deserve the belt.
I look at it like this. He beat Volkov, right? All right, he beat Volkov. Again, a fight that he was completely losing. If that guy had no charisma, if the guy wasn't the character that he is, which we all love, he would not have the position to fight us in the title. And let's be honest with each other.
I couldn't agree more, man.
The guy has everything going for him. Looks is definitely not one of them, but he has a tremendous personality, which makes him one of the best Instagram pages of all time. He constantly has to delete these videos because some of them are way too graphic. And let's talk about the fact that he goes in there to knock out the opponent. The first thing that came to mind when I was seeing that performance is like, God, this is going to happen again, like it's been happening to, every time he steps into the octagon. Last minute, he just gets that knockout. Let's talk about the fact that he fought Francis Gano and they went all 5 rounds just dancing with each other, never really threw a hard punch. This is a guy that doesn't deserve a title fight necessarily because of that performance that he put up the last 2 fights, and still gets the title fight because of his personality and because he knocked out the opponent 10 minutes in the third round in a fight that he was completely losing to. So, back to why Stipe Miocic deserves the title more than Derrick Lewis.
I get it. But let's not say that Derrick Lewis doesn't deserve a title shot. That's just what I'm saying. I think Stipe deserves it more than Derrick, but let's not say Derrick doesn't deserve it. That's just my point to it.
You got it.
Tony Ferguson versus Anthony Pettis. This fight lived up to what it was supposed to be, a brawl. Can we discuss how phenomenal someone like Tony Ferguson is? And can we please discuss, give the man a title shot? This man just came off a 6 months layoff with a knee injury that any human being, no matter what sport you play, you cannot come back from 6 months. And the reason why I know that's so clear is Rogan mentioned that 100 times during his fight. He should have not come back that fast after a knee injury that could have cost people's careers and that takes about 1 year to 2 years to recover. This man did this shit in 6 months.
But even worse than, let's just throw in there that it's not your typical sport. This is not freaking basketball or tennis. This is a gruesome sport that you need your legs. You need your legs not only to block but to kick. And we're talking a guy like Anthony goddamn Pettis, who's known for fucking kicking.
Yeah. So with that being said, which you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why I thought coming back 6 months layoff and then taking a fight with Anthony Pettis, who fucking it's a kickboxing genius. It's just a nightmare for a fighter like Tony Ferguson. But let's talk about the fact that results haven't come back yet in these steroids things. And it's not that necessarily that Tony Ferguson is taking steroids, and I don't want to put that out there, but when you recover that fast from an injury, what are you taking to recover that fast? And a lot of things have to do with HGH. A lot of people talk about Anderson Silva coming back after that leg injury and then getting popped with steroids. Why? Because he needed to recover from that, and he had to take enhancement drugs. I'm not saying that he's taking it. I'm not saying that he's not a freak of nature.
There's different genetics. Let's talk about that. There's genetics that go a long way, and a fact that he's a little younger than a guy like Anderson Silva. But I do agree with any athlete that wants to get back into that octagon. Should I say back to the sport? No matter what sport it is, especially into the octagon where you get drive from being in the octagon. I could see why he would do something like that, but I don't even want to discuss that. I don't think it's something that we should have even brought up. I do agree he came back a little earlier.
I think it's totally something to bring up. I think it's totally something to bring up. All right, with that being said, let's throw it out the window. Let's throw it out the window. I thought it was supposed to be brought up though, but let's throw it out the window. Tony Ferguson, There's a title shot. Tony Ferguson dominated Sergio Pettis.
Yeah.
I think that for
Anthony
somebody,
Pettis.
I mean, Anthony Pettis, Sergio Pettis did fighting us. Anthony Pettis, I think he did a phenomenal job. And the reason why I say dominant is because you've been gone for so long with a massive injury, and you come back and you still make that performance. And someone like Anthony Pettis coming off a last victory that he did a phenomenal job in, and he easily could go back in. It almost looks to me like Anthony Pettis is now going to become this brawler, fan-favorite guy to go into it. And man, that bugs me because we're talking about somebody who was a champion. Somebody who hold that belt and hold the belt in the most convincing way possible.
Let me ask you a question. If Anthony Pettis didn't injure his right hand, do you think he had a chance?
Well, no. I don't think. Do you know why? Just because I don't see Tony Ferguson getting knocked out. I don't see Tony Ferguson getting knocked out because he hit him hard, man.
Yeah, he hit him really hard. What I haven't looked back into is what round or when did exactly his hand break during what altercation?
I think it was towards the third round or something like that. But I will say this about him. Not to take anything away from Anthony Pettis because he's a fucking animal, and I'm not a fighter, but there's many fighters who've broken their hands and they continue going at it. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with that. I think that as soon as you broke it off, and I think a lot of it had to do with his corner more than him.
And so you also who you're fighting. I mean, when you're fighting and you see, and kudos to Duke Rufus for stopping that fight, because you have to look at it. He was getting dominated at that point. Now, not only are you getting dominated, but you lost your arm. Now what? I mean, you might as well go there, lay down and get submitted because you don't want to get knocked out. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you look out for your fighters. One and two. I think it's a great stoppage. Your hand is broken. Let's stop it. We don't want to continue messing this arm up. You still have a lot of money to make in the UFC, man. Yeah. That could really damage and take you away from for a couple of years. But anyways, next fight, bro.
Well, we mean last but not fucking least.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say the whole title contention.
So. No. I think Tony Ferguson deserves a title shot. That's just my personal opinion. I say after I tell you guys the story, I think Tony Ferguson deserves a title shot. Main fight. We got that was like Conor. What the fuck? Conor McGregor versus Khabib McGregor. I don't even know where to start with this fight. We've seen.
I call it dominance.
We've seen Khabib dominate fighters. We have never seen him dominate a fighter like this in this caliber of fighting. We talk about Conor McGregor being the best lightweight that ever walked into that octagon. Khabib beats him by a mile. Giving Conor a rematch, it's not a good thing at this point.
Not a favor for him. No.
The UFC would not do him a favor. The fight is not going to change. Conor McGregor is still considered one punch away from winning this fight. Problem with Khabib is that he could take a punch, one, and problem with Khabib is that he moves better than most lightweights do in his division.
He closes in. Conor McGregor never looked comfortable from the first round. I see him come in and he looks a little relaxed, walking towards to the middle of the octagon. Khabib wasn't having it with him. He was moving around just like you said, but kept on closing in on him. And like your traditional wrestlers, they all have tremendous right hand. And I think Khabib found it. And you're gonna see a lot more of Khabib's right hand. And I could almost promise you that. We saw it with fighters like Mark Munoz, tremendous wrestler. We saw it with fighters like Dan Henderson, who were tremendous wrestlers and turned out to be knockout artists. They all have tremendous right hands.
Unbelievable, yeah, good call.
He caught him completely off guard.
But it goes back to the type of level of wrestling that he puts on you, because Conor didn't. The reason why he got caught, besides that punch was lightning quick. And if you guys don't fucking believe me, YouTube it and rewind that bitch 100 times.
You didn't see it coming. It came from the hips.
It is so fast. And not only is it so fast, so accurate to hit someone like McGregor who could take a punch, and that's what makes him such a special fighter, is that he could take a punch and be stumbled the way he stumbled, and the rest is history.
But it was a tremendous right hand. The thing about it is that he did not see it coming, so he couldn't even really put that much pressure to his jaw.
The reason why he couldn't see it coming is because he expected a takedown, and that's what makes this guy so deadly.
This goes back to what I was going to talk about. I feel like McGregor was not going in there with offense. He was going in there with defense. He didn't know when he was going to get taken down, because the game plan, and I heard this on the podcast with the coach, they went in there with a defense mentality where let's get Khabib a little tired by having him take you down, because you're going to be taken down. That's a given. Come to the second or third round, let's see how we could deal with him on the ground, or let's start putting some combinations in the works to see if you can get an opening for that left hand that you're so infamous with, left or right hand in that case. The problem that they forgot is that Khabib has a better tank than Conor McGregor. So what Khabib could have done in all 5 rounds, Conor McGregor could only do in 3 rounds. Because of that is what we saw, the dominance of Khabib. Khabib not only beat his ass the first, second, but he choked him out in the 3rd round.
The 4th round.
Sorry, I keep on thinking it was the 3rd round. 3 dominating rounds to then submit him in the 4th. It wasn't a full choke, bro. I don't care what anybody says. It was through the jaw.
It was a jawbreaker.
Could he literally have removed it? Who knows? Maybe not. But he was done.
He made him quit.
He made him quit. He made him quit.
He made him quit. He made him quit.
And let's talk about what happened right after, which was it's depressing to know that something like that would have happened, because it's such a huge moment for Khabib, and the fact that he has to go out that way is depressing. You have one of your fighters that you train with, somebody you would call your brother, who's in the process of getting
a UFC contract. No, I think UFC extension.
No. He was actually going to get fired from the UFC. He was supposed to fight versus.
Yeah. Sorry. You're right.
So he was supposed to get cut off, and now you're losing that. Who knows if he's going to get fined? They're withholding his money. They don't know if they're going to give him the belt. All that stuff should have never happened, and it gets me depressed, because a guy like that won 27 in a fucking row. To then win a championship at the highest level, for you to go out like that is fucking sad. Hopefully they just, you know what? For Khabib's sake, I hope they give him a fucking rematch, bro. I really do. So I know he wouldn't act the way he acted at the end.
I think you don't give a rematch, and the only reason why you don't give a rematch is because Brandon Schaub had mentioned this has become more of a country type of thing. Let that shit cool down. This is the reason why I think Tony Ferguson should go versus Khabib, because he proved that he can take it, and he proved that way better person on his back. I'm not a fan of giving McGregor a chance, because there's gonna be craziness going into the fight. There's gonna be craziness things going after the fight. I think it's not good for McGregor's future to take another fight with Khabib. The thing about McGregor is that he's so unpredictable that God knows what the fuck's gonna happen in the next fight. It's just the type of fighter he is, and he's always one punch away. So we're always going, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next? So, Khabib is not that guy. Khabib is just not that guy. What happened? You're right. It's crazy what happened. But I will say this: Khabib did that and put it on the table of the UFC and Dana White and said, "Listen, you fire any of my guys, I'm out of here too." Because the repercussions that McGregor got from the UFC was bullshit. What he did in Brooklyn was absolutely bullshit, because he put a lot of people's lives in danger, not just Khabib. And they call him cowards and all this stuff for fighting. Guess what? McGregor ran in there with 1 million goons going after Khabib. I will say this. Everything that happened, there's no excuse to anything that happened, but I just think that if you're going to start treating, this is a perfect example for the UFC, a learning tool for the UFC is you did not set an example with McGregor. Yeah. So this is what happens now. What are you going to do? Get rid of the fucking champion who's the best fighter in the world right now, pound for pound? You just don't do that. We're going to end this in a good note. Khabib is a fucking champion.
Yeah.
Khabib is the best fighter in the UFC as of today. Pound for pound, even though they do have DC as pound for pound best, because he does have 2 weight classes.
It happened. They're in the same camp.
Let's see what happens. I'm rooting for that Tony Ferguson fight with Khabib that's been long overdue. But fuck, man, we're in a win-to-win situation. They give him Conor, we're gonna win on that as well, right?
Yeah. We're gonna watch either way, whoever the goddamn they put Khabib.
Yeah.
But anyways, tremendous night of fights. Congratulations to all the winners. And it's a wrap, bro.
Yeah, it's a wrap, guys. Follow us wherever you need to follow us. We're not even gonna get into that. It's been a long podcast.
Peace.
Peace, my people.